What is the fine-tuning argument? It is simply that there are certain things about our universe, as well as about our planet, that are so extremely perfectly calibrated that they can hardly be coincidental. If these things were even slightly different, life would not even be possible.
Well, the fine-tuning of the laws and the constants of physics and the initial conditions, that is the arrangement of matter at the beginning of the universe, is one of the most extraordinary discoveries of the 20th century in physics. In order to get a life-friendly universe, we're kind of in what you might call a Goldilocks zone, where multiple parameters, now we know about 36 of these, the expansion rate of the universe, the strength of gravitational attraction, the ratio of fundamental forces like the electromagnetic force and the strong nuclear force. All of these, the strength of these forces have to be just right to allow for life to exist, and building carbon, having stable planets and galaxies. Many, many conditions of life depend on these fine-tuning parameters being just right. And so you can think of it as a Goldilocks universe. Not too hot, not too cold, the force is not too strong, not too weak, speed of light not too fast, not too slow, expansion rate of the universe not too rapid, not too... So things are just right.
Once upon a time, it was possible to believe that life could exist anywhere in the universe, and we assumed that life probably existed on many planets. That's because we believed that the conditions for life were not difficult to meet. And since there were so many stars and planets, it only followed logically that there must be plenty of life out there. Almost 60 years ago, astronomer Carl Sagan said there were only two criteria required for life to exist on any given planet. One was having a star something like our sun, and the other was being the right distance from that star. Since those two conditions were so easy to meet, there must be literally billions of planets in the universe that could support life. Given this now very primitive understanding of how easily life could emerge from non-life in such places, Sagan confidently calculated that there should be innumerable planets with life. This kind of thinking, coupled with Star Trek on TV every week, led to the widespread idea that a colorful variety of life existed throughout the universe.
Fascinating.
And it was only a matter of time before we found it. Or it us. Not long after Sagan made his bold pronouncement, however, subsequent scientific discoveries made it increasingly untrue. The more science learned about the conditions necessary for life, the more it found new criteria that were just as vital as the two Sagan had mentioned. Eventually there were dozens, and the more science learned, the more there were. So of course, the probability of life in the universe plummeted drastically, from billions of planets probably having life, down to millions, and then to thousands. Every time another condition was discovered that was necessary for life, it mathematically reduced the number of planets down until the conditions mounted so high that the number of planets that might support life was winnowed to almost nothing. Eventually, the conditions science reckoned for life had risen so high that the idea that life existed anywhere at all, as it obviously did on our planet, seemed more and more miraculous, and then even outlandish. It didn't make sense that we existed, and yet here we are. Science has shown that the science fiction scenarios we have grown up with are hopelessly out of date, and have confused us into believing that the conditions for life on any given planet can vary dramatically.
Rubbish!
But now we know that they cannot.
What?
So why have most people never heard about any of this? There are two main reasons for that. The first is that it cuts against the narrative that the scientific establishment has been pushing with all its might since Darwin. The fine-tuning argument is that the universe and the planet on which we all live did not come into existence by accident, but were deliberately and intentionally created. This idea, like the discomforting idea of a universe with a beginning, is very embarrassing to anyone wed to a strictly materialistic account of things. And as we say, it is the more embarrassing because the constant stream of scientific discoveries makes it stronger over time. But another reason most of us have not heard the fine-tuning argument is simply that evidence for it has been piling up incrementally over the decades, and there was never any single moment when it was suddenly known. The strength of it has grown quietly. But it has piled up so much in the last decades that now some atheists have felt the need to address it, albeit without very much gusto, so that simply avoiding it is usually the preferred tack. Christopher Hitchens was riding in the back of a car when suddenly someone from the front seat put a camera in his face and asked him which argument was the best from the other side, meaning the side that argued for the existence of God. In this unique case, for reasons we may never know, he answered quickly and honestly. "It is a fine-tuned argument," he said. He went on to say that you have to spend time thinking about it, working on it. It's not a trivial argument. We all say that. Hitchens meant the three others, Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, and Sam Harris, who had come to be known as the Four Horsemen of the New Atheism. These celebrated proponents of the New Atheism had heard many arguments against their view, but Hitchens said it was this one, the argument of a fine-tuned universe, that they all thought the best. So, just how finely tuned are we talking about here?
And that was only one of a whole suite of exquisitely finely tuned conditions that had to be just right. And when they did the mathematics on this, when they calculated how finely tuned these parameters were, they were getting numbers that were 1 in 10 to the big exponential numbers in each case.
Now, with those numbers in mind, consider the following examples of fine-tuning. The fine-tuning here is beyond comprehension. So at what point do we see that our existence, logically speaking, cannot be anything close to a random occurrence? We have not mentioned that each of these outlandish numbers must be multiplied by all the others to get the full picture. When we do that, we get a number so impossibly large that there can be no way to imagine that our universe and our planet and we ourselves are simply here. But science says that changing any one of the parameters mentioned even slightly would destroy the ability for life to exist. So simply to shrug and say this all simply happened by chance seems beyond the pale.
That's impossible!
Saying that would be infinitely dumber than what Jim Carrey's character in Dumb and Dumber says, after being told by the pretty girl that the chances of her dating him are
more like 1 out of a million.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
No, not really. No. A common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics as well as with chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. The number one calculates from the facts seem to me to put this conclusion almost beyond question. Scientists are slowly waking up to an inconvenient truth. The universe looks suspiciously like a fix. The issue concerns the very laws of nature themselves. For 40 years, physicists and cosmologists have been quietly collecting examples of all too convenient coincidences and special features in the underlying laws of the universe that seem to be necessary in order for life, and hence conscious beings, to exist. Change any one of them, and the consequences would be lethal.